Now let's talk about impress candidates. Let's talk about the guys that we think are undervalued right now and are going to increase in value as the season goes. They're going to impress. They're going to score a lot of fantasy points. People are overlooking these cats. And for me, I'm going to go with the number one guy that I put on the list. And it's that new Carolina Panther running back over there. His name's Miles Sanders, currently being valued as RB20 on Keep Trade Cut. And let me just pull up this list for you because I think it's a little egregious, honestly. Some of the guys already valued higher than Miles Sanders: Zach Charbonnet, Dameon Pierce, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins. That's just four of them. Now, there is a very, very high possibility that Miles Sanders outproduces all four of those guys that we just named, and might even tack up a little bit more into that rankings. Now, there's some Javonte Williams up there that we know is going to start slow. He might not get a full year. There's going to be guys like Najee Harris that maybe Miles Sanders outproduces. There's going to be guys like Ramondre Stevenson. As much as I like Ramondre Stevenson, we know how New England is with backs. They might bring in a guy in the draft and kind of split that workload again. Miles Sanders is going to get the bulk of the offensive load in Carolina, and they're going to bring in a rookie quarterback with that number one pick. They're going to want to have a run game that they can lean on while that rookie quarterback is learning the NFL offenses, learning the NFL game. They're going to want to rely on Miles Sanders. He's going to be there for checkdowns. There's not a better pass catcher in that backfield. Chuba Hubbard is not a better pass catcher than Miles Sanders is. He's going to get a 3-down workload, workhorse. He's going to be everything. And I think just purely off of volume alone, Miles Sanders should be valued as a top 15 running back in 2023. And I think if the rookie quarterback comes in and plays really well, and the offensive line is a little bit more improved in the second season. I mean, they just drafted Ikwanu or however you say his last name last year. They're going to be a good enough offensive line and a good enough team that maybe he falls in for double-digit touchdowns. And then at the end of the year, we're looking at it and we're saying, dang, Miles Sanders is a low-end RB1. How did we get here? And I'm telling you today that it's going to happen. So go buy Miles Sanders right now and reap the benefits of Miles Sanders being this poorly valued in the community, because we have this stigma of Miles Sanders where we're like, man, he was so good and we had high hopes and he kind of let us down. And then the year that they finally gave him the rock, Jalen Hurts was vulturing touchdowns from Miles Sanders. And it's like, man, Miles Sanders is never going to be the guy we wanted him to be. Well, he switched teams, and I think Deuce Staley is going to give him the opportunity to do what he wants to do. And at this point, if Miles Sanders fails, it's because Miles Sanders failed. It's not going to be because he didn't get the opportunity. The opportunities are going to be there. Miles Sanders is significantly undervalued at this point, in my opinion.
I have to 100% agree with you. I'm big on Miles Sanders, buying Miles Sanders stock wherever I can. I think that he'll have more opportunities in Carolina. There's no Jalen Hurts in Carolina. There may be, I don't think the quarterback they draft is going to be a running quarterback either. So I think he'll be able to put up fairly decent numbers as long as he can stay healthy. That's the big thing. He has to stay healthy.
Yep. And you know what? That's the thing with every running back in the NFL is, can the running back stay healthy? And I would say 75% of the time they do. The other 25%, they don't. And so it's just luck of the draw, right? And so I think, like you said, if he stays healthy, man, he's going to get the volume. It's going to be a high workload type of deal in Carolina. They paid him as if they're just going to bell cow him. And you know what? They don't have to pay a quarterback, so they're going to be on a rookie deal, and they're only going to grow with this offense. I think year one and potentially year two, Miles Sanders could be really good for fantasy football. And if you're playing with your dynasty or fantasy running backs in a view of more than a 2-year window, you're doing yourself a disservice, because really those running backs you should really only be looking at in 2-year, maybe 3-year windows anyways. So I think the next 2 years looks good for Miles Sanders, man. They're going to give him the opportunity to run the ball. And if he Yeah, I mean, there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. To me, it's Miles Sanders' season in Carolina finally. So
I
let's
agree.
uh let's talk about your first impress candidate. And hey, he's a Chicago Bear. It's wide receiver DJ Moore, currently being valued as wide receiver 19 on Keep Trade Cut. I will give you a list of some of the guys valued above him, and you tell me if it's egregious or not. But Jamison Williams, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Drake London, and so on. I could keep going up that list, but DJ Moore, he's your impress candidate. Tell me why he is undervalued right now.
Because he's a Chicago Bear. That's why. That's why he's undervalued. Um, like 90% of those guys you just named, I would take before. Let's see. I'm just trying to remember the ones. Cooper Cup. If
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Cup is healthy, if Matt Stafford is healthy, okay. But I don't know how much he's going to have left in the tank going forward.
Kupp's 30.
And Cup's 30, yeah. Um, let's see who else we got. Jameson Williamson.
Adams.
Devontae Adams, okay. I'm probably that's a tough one because of the age, but
Yeah, he's 30 as well.
I can honestly say the only guy that you named that I will have above him is maybe Diggs.
Tyreek.
That's Tyreek.
And then I
And
said
Tyreek.
Jackson Smith and Jigma.
I have him over Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yes, I have him over Jackson Smith and Jigba. Because Jackson Smith and Jigba,
top 13 wide receiver right now.
Yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba could get drafted by a dump, and his stock will just go crashing. Like, we don't know where he's going to go. What do I know? I know that DJ Moore has Justin Fields, and we know how high I am on Justin Fields. So why is DJ Moore so low? I think it's some anti Bears rhetoric going on there, and I think that's why he's lower on the list. I mean, I understand. There's a lot of people say, "Oh, DJ Moore, he's not a real number one." Well, let's see. Let's go through the hodgepodge of the quarterbacks that he had thrown to him. Let's see. Broke down and busted Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield, PJ Donald.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Who else? Teddy Bridgewater and the rest of the trash all-stars. So let's see what he looks like with a real quarterback. I will have to say I think he's going to look pretty damn good.
And you know what? I'm glad you're talking DJ Moore because I've been DJM anonymous for the last couple years, and people, at a point, I guess people get sick of hearing me talk DJ Moore. But I did want to bring up the fact that, we just talked about all of those quarterbacks, right? And all of those guys that he's played with. And we have two years with 900 yards and then 3 years with almost 1,200 yards. So career-wise, we're at, let's see, 18. We're like 6,000 career yards for DJ Moore, and he's played with those quarterbacks.
He would already be the Bears franchise holder for receiving yards if he was on the Bears. So that should tell you about where DJ Moore is as far as talent.
Yeah, and sorry, 5,000 receiving yards is where he would be, not 6,000. My math was bad, but that is where we're at. It's 1,000 yards a year. It comes in like clockwork with DJ Moore. He's just 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns, 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns, 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. It just happens over and over and over again. And I think finally, I say finally with a little emphasis there because I'm like, finally, DJ Moore is going to score more than 5 touchdowns? Maybe. There's a chance.
Maybe.
There's a chance. But hey,
Justin Fields likes to run, and we'll
bank
see.
on 1,000 yards. And in fact, let's bank on like 1,200, maybe 1,500 yards for DJ Moore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm down with that.
I agree. let me talk about I'm going to stick with the wide receivers. We're going to stick here at wide receiver, and I'm going to talk about my impress candidate, and that is Calvin Ridley. Wide receiver now for the Jacksonville Jaguars, being valued as wide receiver 34 on Keep Trade Cut. Wide receiver 34. That's
They
egregious.
must have forgot. They
34.
must have forgot who that man was.
Let me tell you who is being valued higher than him on Keep Trade Cut right now. Some names, just to list them: his teammate, Christian Kirk, Hollywood Brown, Chris Godwin, Jahan Dotson, Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston, Brandon Ayuk, Treylon Burks, George Pickens, Christian Watson, Jerry Jeudy. What is going on? Did we not forget, or did we forget that Calvin Ridley is a 1,200-yard receiver and was balling with the Atlanta Falcons? He was at one point where we were talking about, Calvin Ridley could finish as the wide receiver 1 this year. That is conversations we were having. And he was playing with Matt Ryan next to Julio Jones. We were having those conversations. He has Trevor Lawrence now playing next to Christian Kirk. And I get it. I like Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is a good wide receiver. He's not Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley is going to go for 1,500 yards and double-digit touchdowns this season. And I'm really not trying to hype it up. Like, this is literally what is going to happen. They're going to throw the ball to Calvin Ridley nonstop in Jacksonville. And saying wide receiver 34, you guys are ridiculous. We're talking top 15 wide receiver numbers, possibly top 10 wide receiver numbers, maybe top 5 wide receiver numbers for Calvin Ridley this year if he comes back to form and looks like he did pre-suspension.
Wow, Andrew, you really went out on the ledge there with Calvin Ridley. I mean, the guy gambled a little bit, took a year off. Now he's just going to come back and get 1,500 yards, huh? That's what you're saying is going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, look.
Here, I think Calvin Ridley said that himself. Let's see. I'm looking for it. You give me your take.
Look, I love Calvin Ridley.
You said
I love Ridley. I love Ridley. Do I think Ridley is going to outperform DJ Moore this year? No, I do not think Ridley is going to outperform DJ Moore because we're talking about 1,200 yards for DJ Moore, 1,500 yards for Calvin Ridley. I don't think that's going to happen. Christian Kirk is still a thing. And on top of that, let's take it back. Let's take it back just a little bit. Let's take it back before the gambling problem. Wasn't there an issue with him sitting out because there was a question of whether or not he still loved football? That was a thing, right?
Yeah, it was a thing. I mean,
so
he
how do we know that this guy is going to play 6 games and then just say, "Oh man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore"? So I mean, I think that may be baked into where he's ranked is the fact that he hasn't played in a year. And the fact that before he sat out last year, there's a question of whether or not he still wanted to play football. So, I mean,
I hear you. Now, I did find the quote, and I will read this because it kind of touches on what you're saying. But Ridley said that he lost his joy for football, and what started his journey to that point where he was gambling and doing the other stuff is when the Atlanta Falcons were having him play through a foot injury for the entire 2020 season. And during that season that his foot was injured, he caught 90 passes for 1,300 yards. Ridley said that he had a bone bruise, and the team forced him to take pain-killing injections to continue playing. And later found out that he had actually broken his foot when he saw a specialist after the season. He went to a non-team doctor, found out that was happened. He ended up having to get surgery. He said he was mentally drained. He said at that point he was on painkillers and all the other stuff that the team was having him do. He said he just lost the joy. That wasn't fun to him. I don't think that would be fun to anybody. And at that point, he said,
I could look in my personal life. I can relate to how he feels about that. Yeah, I can relate to that.
He said at that point the anxiety cranked up. He was having the birth of his daughter and some other stuff, and he said, "I'm stepping away from football." And that's what happened. But I wanted to go down a little bit because he says, this is the quote that I was talking about. And he says, Uh, when he got traded to Jacksonville, all he could think about was how excited he was, how ready he was to come play. And he said, this is his quote: "On my daughter's name, when I'm healthy with Trevor Lawrence, I'm giving Jacksonville 1,400 yards per season, period." That's what he says. So I'm taking that man at his word. He's going out here. I said 1,500. He says 1,400. I think he'll do 1,500. But that's what he says he's doing, man. So I think he's severely underrated.
I like Calvin. I like Calvin, really. I hope he does it. I hope he
At
does
the
it.
end of the day, I think we both can agree wide receiver 34 is
It's too low.
ridiculously cheap. Ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
So that is my last impress candidate, unless you have anything else about Calvin.
I don't have anything else about Calvin. I just have a question, and it's
Okay.
a selfish question because I think there's somebody else being super slept on, and I swear I'm not being biased. I swear I'm not being biased. I'm just curious, where's Darnell Mooney ranked on that list?
Let's see.
Look, you got to scroll all the
Darnell.
way down.
Yeah, we might have to go to the second page.
Yeah, see.
Wide receiver 54, Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, you don't have to say who's ranked above him. I know it's egregious. And I think the fantasy football world has forgotten how good that dude is. And I think with another wide receiver one there, he's going to show out. All right, let's go on.
Your favorite wide receivers, Gabe Davis and Juju Smith-Schuster, are ranked above him. So
Gabe Davis.
and
I don't know
Juju,
why.
come
I'm
on,
just
you like
disregarding
Juju.
Juju. Gabe Davis. I don't know why Gabe Davis is being slept on, but whatever.
Can I interest you in Wan'Dale Robinson, who's ranked above
No,
him?
you cannot. I'll pass.
What
I'll
about
pass him.
Kadarius Toney?
Darnell Mooney would eat on the Chiefs. He would be their number one wide receiver.
All right. Well, let's get to your last impress candidate, and let's head over to the running back market, and we're going to be talking about Tony Pollard. You said he's going to impress, and he's ranked as RB10 right now on Keep Trade Cut. Explain yourself, War. Explain yourself. He's on RB1 right now. How is he going to impress off of this?
You know what? I might have flubbed a little bit picking him for this, but you know what? I'm going to argue it anyway. I think who's ranked above Tony Pollard?
Well, your boy Josh Jacobs,
Okay,
Jahmyr
that's one.
Gibbs,
Two.
Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne,
Three.
CMC, Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Bijan.
Okay, so three of those names on that list, I think Tony Pollard's going to finish above them. I think he's going to finish closer to wide receiver 6. I think he's going to have an awesome year in Dallas, unless this rumor of Zeke possibly returning is true. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. Even if it does, I think it'll even be clear to Zeke at that point, like, okay, now I'm the running back too. I'm his backup. So I mean, why release him though? I don't know, but I think Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard is going to be awesome this year. I mean, he's not going to go too much higher than running back 10, but I think he could definitely get up to 6 or 7 for sure. And for him in a running back position, I think that's going to be a huge jump up. But yeah, in hindsight, I should have picked someone who was a little more slept on, but I do think he's going to outperform where he's ranked.
Fair enough. And I'm not sure if the ranking that we see is actually the value that people are selling him for, because I swear I've seen Pollard traded in a couple of my leagues this offseason, more than once. And I feel like I've seen less than RB10 value. Like, I feel like I've seen him get traded for less than that. So if you can buy him for less than that, and you're thinking he can finish top 6, then yeah, it's a value. It's just a matter of, are you making that gamble or not? And it sounds like you are.